All right. Looks like we're live. I think this is episode 19. So today it's just going to be me solo, just trying to knock this one out. So, what are we going to talk about? So, definitely want to cover the border a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Iran. Hate to say I told you so on that, and I hope it doesn't get worse. Definitely going to talk about these rate cuts that happened right now. And if you guys have any questions at the end, I'll stick around and try to answer those. So I don't know where to start. I wanted to make a video about the border as soon as it happened, but I just didn't get time. Which first and foremost, what I want to say is a lot of people were pissed off at SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, because they ruled in the favor of the Biden administration. Especially, a couple of our conservatives on the court, sided with the Biden administration. And I want to say, I don't think they're wrong. At the end of the day, the power to protect America overall needs to stay at the federal level. It should be at the highest level. Whatever the president is going to dictate. If it was Trump in office, we'd have to stand by it. If it's Biden now, we have to stand by it. This should just wake everybody up to say, hey, we don't want to vote for this guy anymore, right? Or we don't, not vote for this guy, but we don't want this guy in power anymore if you feel that strongly about it. That's the way it should work. And people are calling me, they called me a hypocrite because I said, although I do not blame Texas for doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like, ultimately, I think, the power should stay federal. We don't like what this guy's doing. We should vote him out. But in the meantime, you got people literally pouring in. You got to do something to stop this. And it's kind of wild to think that, close to, 25 states have pledged and said, hey, enough is enough. And honestly, guys, I it doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Why not protect our border? I've long said, is it a conspiracy theory? Excuse me. For the Democrats, for them to say, hey, we're going to let these illegals in, they're going to get in, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to say, you are now all legal, you can all be voters, and so the Democrats could keep more power? Is that like the play here? I don't understand it. And I'm not coming from a spot, and I just want to make this clear, I believe in immigration. I believe in immigration the right way. And this is nothing more than just mathematics and facts. We simply cannot just accept everybody coming in. There's just not enough resources. There's not enough cops, enough firefighters, it's not even enough housing. There's not even enough housing for us. We have homeless people here. We have everybody here. It's just, I feel bad for everybody in the world. I want to help everybody in the world, but just bringing people over is never going to be the answer. We should, how about this? Instead of dropping billions of dollars on wars, overseas, how about we pour billions of dollars into these underdeveloped communities and try to help them? Or send some of our military aid to try to stabilize some of these crazy countries so people don't have to flee. There's an idea. That's just my opinion, but we'll see how it shapes up. I definitely think this presidential cycle, more than ever, immigration is going to be at the top of the head. Okay, so keeping it politics. I've been talking about how much Iran can really escalate, and it's just, just to recap and reiterate, what's been going on over there. Essentially, Biden administration released some funds. Iran got a little bit of money. I talk about this in my last episode with Arsh that we did. Iran gets a little bit of money. They fund, they got the Houthis up there. They fund Hamas and say, go ahead and attack Israel. They did that, and this is just me thinking of why they did what they did and their motives. Iran funded Hamas to attack Israel, so there's not a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel, right? They did it in their own interests. And now they're continuing to provoke that. And, of course, they want to stir up crap. And to me, if you really peel the onion back, peel everything back, you look at American history, before I was born, probably before a lot of you guys were born too, we had this affection with Iran. We put in the Shah of Iran. if you Google 1970s, Iran, you're going to be like, what the hell? Like that's Iran, before they pushed back and, they went very conservative, went really, what they are now. It's been a very interesting relationship between the United States of America and Iran. And, we wanted to use Iran as a puppet for the Middle East. So, America had a stronghold we could show Iran as a beacon of what, the rest of the Middle East could be. And at a certain point in time, look, I am American first. I love the way, our country is. I love my freedom. I love everything about this culture. But also I'm here to tell, whoever's willing to listen, the rest of the world doesn't want to live like we do. They don't accept our beliefs and our cultures and all that. So that's okay if they don't. But that's been a pain point for Americans across the world, because we're just like, why, we keep trying to introduce freedom, but not everybody wants that freedom. And now, so what's going on? The Houthis, up there, funded by Iran, have been shooting at international ships. And recently, I think there's been like 100 plus attacks. There has been 100 plus attacks since August on American bases. And now 3 American soldiers are killed, and you got these heads in D.C. saying, we want war. And, or America needs to retaliate, or else, we're weak. And, like I said, it just causes this perpetual cycle of violence, where we go and we drop some bombs on them. Some people die. The people that are left want to get revenge. They turn into terrorists, and the cycle never stops. And I'm not saying America should not respond. I mean, you take American lives. I'm sorry, but you're literally asking for it. But I guess, the measure is how much should we respond? Should the response be so fierce that it calls for a counter from Iran, and now we're in a full-blown war? I don't know. This is just the truth. This should have never even happened. This administration is weak. This didn't happen under Trump. People legitimately respected America. They probably thought he was crazy. They probably thought he was going to drop a nuke on them, so nobody wanted to really do anything about it, right? They were just kind of like, we better just keep our mouth shut. And that fear has been gone. So I don't know how America is going to retaliate. And I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm not saying don't retaliate. It's a very, very tough spot. But I'm saying we have to tread carefully, because this is the type of shit that could spark World War III. And I know you guys are thinking, oh, God damn it, here we go, Joe Hall with the freaking fear porn World War III. But, yeah, very easily, if you see how everything is lined up, Russia, because remember, this is all on the border of Syria where this kind of happened, right? So Russia's also been out there. Who do you think they're going to take sides with? China now having its economic issues. Me and Arsh covered that in depth in last week's episode about what's going on with the Chinese economy. War is a good way out. So now you have China, Russia, and Iran teaming up against us. In my humble opinion, from what I have read and I've gathered, we should use the UN for what it's used for. What's happened here is tragic. 3 Americans lost their lives, but moreover than that, the Houthis have continuously attacked international shipping and international trade. This is something where the whole UN should get involved, where it should be a coalition, and it should not just be America. If we really want to show our might, our influence, our strength, it's like everybody has to come together. Otherwise, why do we even have the goddamn UN? Why the hell is our taxpayer dollars going there? Let's just disassemble all that shit and just call it for what it is. It's America, the world police, right? If we're not full of shit, and we're actually want to use the proper channels, this is the time where you say, hey, everybody get together, let's go. I'm very curious to see what happens. We'll lead into what the hell does this mean for financial markets. I don't know. What does this mean for financial markets? Has the market priced in a radical reaction or plan that America is going to go into full scale war with Iran? No, it hasn't. And that's very evident from even today. The big news that came out is rate cuts are going to go unchanged, throughout March, even though there's a lot of analysts that are saying that, a lot of analysts are saying that, we're going to have cuts. I don't know. We're going to have to wait for the data. what happens if we go to war? That throws a wrench in everything's, the whole plan, right? We might have to cut rates a lot sooner because, we're going to go into a full-blown war economy, right? These are things that we've always teetered on the fence. And I don't think this is going to lead to a world war. I don't think anybody really truly wants that on all sides. I really don't. Like I said, I think this should be a UN coalition. I'll end it there for how this should, proceed, but we'll see what happens. As far as the market is concerned, as far as rates are concerned for the rest of the year, look, the market is always forward-looking. I don't know how many of you guys watching this understand that, but that's that. The stock market. So value investing is it's the price of what something should be or is today, right? Like if I got this bottle of water, I know this bottle of water is $1. I'm going to pay $1. That's like true value investing is what you pay, below market, whatever. The stock market, if this was trading on the stock market, it's going to price in what this bottle of water should be worth a month from now or 6 months from now, maybe even a year from now. So a lot of what that market rally did at the beginning of the year has priced in the fact that the Fed was going to cut. And now the fact that the Fed said, hey, we're not going to cut or we're thinking about pulling back, we'll see what happens. This is exactly how a market could blow up. This is exactly how, market pukes. And remember, these interest rates, guys, it's not like the bank changes interest rates today and then tomorrow we're like, oh my God, it takes time to work through the economy. So, the decision made today to pause, we all probably won't feel this decision until probably, closer towards the end of the year. A lot of commercial businesses, remember, if you have a house and you're locked in at 3%, good for you. You're locked in for, for a while and you got a great rate. But for everybody else that has commercial businesses, you're usually, refinancing every 3, 5 to 7 years. So in the last year, we've raised rates like crazy, like just astronomically. And so a lot of these businesses that are coming up for renewal, now they have to face these higher rates. And what are they going to do? They're going to have to inject cash or they're going to have to sell at a loss. They're going to have to figure it out. So keeping these rates paused, it could prolong the pain as well. So the Fed's in a hard spot. They don't know what to do. What they do know is they could sit back and wait for the data because they know as soon as the economy does start slipping, it does really start falling, they have the tool belt to come in, cut rates, and they can make the economy go back up. And I'll end it on this. It's a very interesting thing. Usually, historically, whenever you cut rates, a recession starts. Like that's what's happened the last 3 times, right? And what happens is like in the 90s, they cut in 2000, dot-com bubble bust. In 2000, they cut rates, dot-com bubble bust. 08, 09, they cut rates, housing bubble bust. 2020, they cut rates. We all know what happened, the vid, right? So anytime they've historically cut rates, especially rapidly, it's usually shit's gone really bad. And the only other way they're going to cut rates or the market comes crashing down is a black swan event. And a black swan event is just something that nobody freaking sees, like World War III. That could be a black swan, right? Nobody ever priced that in or thought we were, so I don't see any black swan events. I think the Fed is playing it smart by trying to hold off a little bit and seeing, where the market's going to go in 3 months, and not just the market, but also the real economy, how much pain's out there, what's going on. Because right now, guys, one of the things that's really hurting, the local economy is going to be these regional banks. And, there's 4,000 plus banks in the United States of America. And these regional banks are really important. That's how guys like us get a chance to get a loan, because JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America and Citi aren't going to give guys like us and girls like I'm not a girl, but guys and girls, a chance, right? They're going to be like, we got bigger business to deal with, or they're not really interested. They got a box, they have a cookie cutter, and they're like, you need to fit here. All of my loans that I have done on all my personal projects, my properties, they've all except for one, because Chase ended up buying the loan afterwards, all came from smaller banks that helped us get to the finish line. So what's happening with the banking, these small banks' balance sheets is they're bleeding, they're dying, and if they don't get any type of bailout, they're going to get swallowed up and get sold to the big guys. So that's another thing the Fed has to be careful about, because you do want some banking competition out there, right? Like if I have a project and I want to bring it, I should be able to bring it to like 3-4 local banks, let them kind of compete for my business. If all of a sudden those 4 banks go to one bank, one small bank, and all the other assets of the 3 go up to the big 4, what are we left with in this country? I don't think a lot of people are going to get, a lot of opportunities. Once again, that's just my opinion. We'll see. So what should you look for if you're in the market today? Look, I always implore, or I always ask everyone to implore and to look into some type of defensive strategy. If you're really, really long some stocks, definitely look at some puts far out if you can. Look at different types of strategies you could do to hedge, or just let it ride. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to give the advice without knowing individually what you're into. But when it comes to asset classes such as you're trying to buy a business, you're trying to buy real estate, just a general rule of thumb, I've been saying this since last year. If you're buying something, anything below an 8 cap, I wouldn't recommend it unless it's like an A class, like pristine, like just wow type of property. Then I'd say, yeah, go ahead, pay the 4 cap, pay the 5 cap. But if it's not, and it needs a little bit of TLC, it needs some of your time and energy devoted into it, then I would say, don't buy unless it's an 8 cap. Okay, so with that being said, I got a question in here, I'll answer that. If you guys have questions, if you're listening or you're watching, go ahead and drop it, and I'll stay on for a little bit longer to answer those. They said, what do you think about SPY and 500? If you're asking, do I think SPY can get to 500? I absolutely can. Usually, whenever we're in this type of bull market, you're usually going to see the bull market continue to go higher. It's usually not like bull market starts and you just boom, right? I don't think we're anywhere near the phase or the stance or the cycle where there's pandemonium and we've overbought and I think we're still kind of getting started. I think a lot of it depends on the news that's going to come out, especially in 3 months. You're going to probably see a pullback. You're probably going to see another stock market pullback before the end of the week, because now everybody's like, whoa, we were expecting these cuts back in February or at least March, and now we have to wait until after March to see if there's going to be cuts for the rest of the year. Now everybody doesn't know how to price that really in, So what do you think about 30-year mortgage rates right now for buying a home, Bay Area? Well, I mean, the good news is rates aren't going to go higher, at least not yet. So, and this is like a fine line that you're playing with, where it's like, we know we have to pay this as the mortgage rate, and the person selling, there's only so many people that can buy that can afford that rate. So what these sellers have been, waiting for is like, well, let's just see if Papa Powell ends up, dropping the rate a little bit, we'll be able to come down, right? If not, then, the price has to come down, because at the end of the day, man, it's affordability, right? Like, I know you live in the Bay Area, so it's crazy out there, and I feel for you guys, but it's like, you can't sell a 2-bedroom, a half-bathroom freaking house for, $5 million if no one can afford it. No bank's going to write that. It has to come back down to what's actually affordable for the majority of the population there. And I think these 3 months, if there is no rate cuts in those 3 months, I would just be patient. I would wait until March. Let's see what Powell says. He's going to give a clear indication of what's going to happen in the future. And if there is no cuts, then that you just got to keep waiting, because those prices are going to come down. If there are cuts, then now is the time to buy. That's pretty much it, So, do you think NVIDIA is overpriced? It's kind of funny, man. I don't. I know it seems kind of crazy because you see the chart just explode, and you're like, whoa, what the hell's going on? But I would implore you to. There's a very, very, very good podcast. It's called The Acquired Podcast. And these guys, they nerd out, and they do episodes like once a month on companies, and they give the whole origin story. And I really think if you're interested in investing in NVIDIA, before we find out Nancy Pelosi did and made millions, but I really encourage you to go ahead and watch that episode on NVIDIA, and you could see why they're so far ahead of the curve, why that company is, in my opinion, still undervalued, it's going to do just fine. And it's crazy. Compared to AMD, it's still way, in my opinion, it's still better to buy NVIDIA than AMD right now compared to like the value that you're going to get. But if you want to learn more about NVIDIA and like why their stock is, trillion and why they're going up like crazy, check out that Acquired podcast. It goes into detail of why this company is such a killer and why it's like going to be an American freaking staple, man. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions. Question: who owns the Federal Reserve? Well, it's not just who owns the Federal Reserve. It's the banking system itself. So the Federal Reserve banking system, the way it works is there's a board of governors, right? And then there are shareholders in the Federal Reserve system. Now, those shareholders remain private, but essentially it's all the banks, right? Like if I own a bank, you own a bank, we're going to have shares in the Federal Reserve System, and we're going to be a part of the Federal Reserve System. So when we have excess cash, we could dump it into the Federal Reserve. We could park it there for free. They pay us the 5%. When we as a bank, we want to borrow from the Federal Reserve to loan to our local communities, like if you open a car wash, a gas station, whatever, that 5.5%, whatever it is that they charge, we're usually going to charge 2 to 3% above that, lend out, make a spread, and hope to God the loans don't blow up. So that's pretty much it. Well, you asked, man. I mean, it's not a come on, bro. I mean, I know you want me to get into a conspiracy theory, but it's really not. If you really, really, really do your homework on it, it's not. So you never heard of Creature from Jekyll Island? Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that. I understand how it was made. I understand how the congressmen in 1913, they passed the act. Before that, they had, I know the whole history. I'm not, just, like I know you were probably thinking like, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. But I'm telling you how this financial system has to work is you kind of need something like that, something like a Federal Reserve System, because you need some type of fiat. You need a little bit of inflation because that's how you're going to be able to take on more risk. Because when capital grows, it's going to go to different types of projects. And not every single project is going to succeed. And if we lived in a very one-symmetric system where we were solely focused on returns today and not thinking about returns tomorrow or decades down the road, you would never get any type of VC venture, startups. You'd never get any type of crazy loans. It just wouldn't happen. I know that might be hard for anyone to hear because, you want me to say that, the system is screwed and how everything is flawed, but it's really not that flawed. It's good to have, and my fear is the Fed is not going to stay independent, which it should stay independent from the political theater. Now, the last few presidential cycles, they kind of been intertwined, but for the most part, it's in everyone's best interest to let the Federal Reserve be independent and make its own decisions, even if that means it's pain for the country because they're protecting the dollar. The dollar is what we're all trying to earn. We want that thing to be worth as much as possible in order to do it. Alan Greenspan said the Fed is a private corporation. It is, but it isn't. It's gotten its powers to through the Constitution. Or not to the Constitution, but through lawmaking, man. They have the ability to print and set interest rate and control the flow of money. And they play a very, very, very vital part in how, me and you get to function, what we get to do. And, some could argue they haven't done a good job in the last, 3, 4 years, 5 years. But really, it's a very interesting thing because if there was no Federal Reserve, I always go back to thinking like, how much worse could it have been in 2008? I don't know. I'm not saying what they did is right with the quantitative easing, right? I'm not saying that's right. I think we'll find out. To be 110% honest with you, man, you got to understand this is all just a freaking experiment. 1913, add 10 years. It's 114 years since we've had the Federal Reserve in place. And we've, and it wasn't until 2008 when they really stepped in and they said, we're going to, go ahead and do this quantitative easing to try to bail us out. There's never ever been a bailout before like that, not in that magnitude, right? So we're all kind of along for the ride. We don't know, I can't tell you how is it going to end up when you have a banking system that has trillions of dollars on its balance sheet that's going to be able to disappear. Does that money just disappear? Or, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I do know that it's gotten us this far. they must be doing something right with America being the most powerfulest nation in the world. I wish I had a crystal ball because I could prepare more adequately. But if you're really worried about that, and you're really worried about the Federal Reserve, the debt, and all this, and that, then why not buy some Bitcoin? That seems to be like one of the best hedges against all of it, right? Digital gold that you could, move around. I think Bitcoin is, an amazing tool. Will there ever be? Let's see if we get. Yeah, will the dollar ever become obsolete one day? Yeah, eventually. 100%. 100% the dollar will be obsolete. It's just, it happens with all the currencies. We're going to inflate, we're going to kick the can down the road. It's inevitable because, it's not just that. You got to understand is when, the post I just made about Republicans and Democrats just passing that bill that's going to give $150 billion that's going to be added to our deficit to illegal immigrants to help with food stamps and welfare. Right now today that all sounds good. It gets you votes. We give free stuff away, but eventually someone's going to have to pay for it. Who's that someone? I don't know. I guess the game is you just get the potato hot enough to pass it off to the next generation, right? Like that's exactly the game that we're playing. Because if we were responsible, we would never let our debt get that high. We would never let our deficits get that high. We really would reel it back in. But that's just not the game. It's not necessarily the dollar or the system. It's people. Even Bitcoin is going to have, the fundamental thing about Bitcoin is that, there's only 24 million coins that are going to be mined in another 20 or 30 years. But, the thing is that Bitcoin is still going to be backed by some type of fiat. That's the thing. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand that. It's not that we're going to ever be trading Bitcoin for bananas and stuff. It's just not feasible. But what's going to happen is different currencies are going to pop up and they're going to peg themselves to Bitcoin, right? And some currencies are going to go bust. Some currencies are going to survive. And that's just the way it's going to be, But that's what my belief is. So I continuously think that's what's going to happen because if you look at, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but if you look at how, the gold standard work, essentially it was, a country would run up a deficit and we would get paid in gold. And when you spent too much like America, people that bought our bonds, because what happens is let's say I want to go to war with Iran. And I need that money today. So I say, okay, I'm going to go issue a war bond. So I go, print $1 trillion of bonds. Either the government sells it to us, the people, at 5% interest, or we sell it to other nations. So other nations take those bonds, they give us their currency, we get the money, we get to go and fight. And we're like, yeah. Eventually that debt's due. And if we don't have enough money to pay the debt back, then we would give our gold up, right? But we've eliminated all that. So, and don't forget, and I don't know why, this is also why a lot of people forget about this too, is the fact that we do have a huge gold reserve. So even if everything does go to shit, we could always restart and just be like, hey, we've, we messed up. Let's restart this thing. We'll be backed by gold, but essentially, gold would just go back and forth between currencies. So you'd still have the Swiss franc, you'd still have the England pound, the American dollar, the Mexican peso, and what would happen is countries would settle in gold. And in my opinion, what's going to happen, instead of the gold, it's just going to be settled in Bitcoin. So you're going to see big blocks going back and forth of Bitcoin from wallets of governments. But essentially, you're still going to have fiat currency. And because there's no way to tax, right? There's no way, if I make a crazy random account, sure, and a forensic accountant can try to figure out who owns that wallet, but if I either property tax is going to go through the freaking roof and the government's going to get their Bitcoin through property tax, or they're going to have to create some type of fiat that's pegged to Bitcoin or whatever, but they're not going to care. Government's not going to care about that. They're going to say, we got this fiat, if you own this piece of property or you own whatever, you need to pay us in this fiat. They have a monopoly on property. They have a monopoly on the actual physical land. So at the end of the day, they're going to dictate what goes. And to anybody out there that's saying, we don't need to pay tax and we don't need government. Yeah, you do, dog. Come on. You need firefighters. You're going to need cops. You're going to need public works. You're going to need schools. Come on, it's how a society needs to function. But you know, you don't need to go crazy with Bitcoin either. You know, I don't think like it's a race of like, oh, I have to have a whole Bitcoin, otherwise I'm gonna. No, like I always said, you know, since I've ever started this page and people have asked me about Bitcoin, I'll say it till I die. Like, you just need to buy a tenth. Just buy a tenth. Like, if Bitcoin's at, I don't know what is that right now, like 50 grand. If you have $5,000, just buy 1/10 of it. Because if it goes to $1 million, then, you know, that $5,000 is going to turn to 50. You're going to make almost like a 10x or 20x return. It's insane. You could still continue to hold it, right? And if it goes belly up, okay, you lost $5,000, but is that going to be the end of the world for you? It's not. So, you know, and from there you could adjust your holdings if you want to buy a little bit more, or, you know, or sell or do whatever, you know. So if you have any other questions, let me know. We just need a little less government. Yeah, I mean, that's true. You know, fake juice run everything. Okay. Here we go. Said Dr. Antonio. How do you feel about the Chiefs and Niners logo being painted all over the Raiders stadium? You're just a freaking troll, dog. It feels horrible, man, but we'll be back, baby. Dig the pic in the background and stuff. Yeah, that's the Golden Temple, man. It's one of my friend's cousins drew that for me for a wedding gift. So, you know, we just have it at the house. I love like crazy art like that. It's pretty dope, but... All right, cool. Yeah, if there's no other questions, man, I'm going to wrap up tonight. I was trying to make it short, but y'all got me ranting now. So let's see if there's another question that came in. Okay. All right, if we got no other questions, I'm going to call it a night, you know. So it says, what's the best advice that was the best advice I ever heard. Appreciate it, man. I can't tell if you're trolling or you're being real. I heard the Fed won't raise rates in March. No, they're not. They're gonna wait. They're gonna wait and see. What religion are you in? I'm Sikh. I'm Sikh. Got that tatted on me, baby. Got remember death and Ikankar, which is you know, God is one, because you know, God is one. But if you want to hear my thoughts of for like the Fed and whatever, I'm gonna post this. You could go back and watch it if you want. I'll try to post it to Spotify and everything else too. So, all right, we got a little bit of action. All right, cool. All right, if that's it, if that's all we got, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time. Next time we're gonna have to get my boy Arsh back on here. I just wanted to just knock this out and get it done. I didn't think it was gonna go this long. Otherwise, I would have had him join. But we'll catch up with you guys next week, and you know, have a good week, and hopefully fucking World War III doesn't start between now and until I see you guys. I don't know. All right. Oh, yeah, shit. If you guys can, you know, like, subscribe, all that crap, and share, would really appreciate it. If you could share the video I'm about to post with a friend, share my content, that would help a lot. Thanks, guys.